Tom, what's going on with Penn and the structure with what Dave Portnoy did? I'm going to go to page 5 here. Read this. I'm going to hand it over to you. So again, Dave Portnoy. Penn ESPN deal allows Barstool Sports founder Portnoy to buy it back for, ready, $1. To buy it back for $1. Dave Portnoy acquired it back for $1 from Penn. For $1 from Penn Entertainment ESPN deal after having initially sold it for $500 million. The move was seen as a strategic step to ensure the company's long-term viability, with Portnoy's anticipating 2 or 3 more decades of success. Penn Entertainment has previously acquired 36% stake in Barstool Sports for $163 million in 2020 and later completed the acquisition by buying the remaining shares for $388 million. A subsequent 10-year, $2 billion agreement with ESPN led to the renaming of Barstool Sports as ESPN Bet. Portnoy acknowledged respect for the Penn team while highlighting the content limitations posed by regulated industries. Tom, $1, $500 million to $1. What happened here?
Okay, let's dive in, because the headline is entrepreneur buys company back for $1. And everybody goes, wow, how did that happen? Well, it's not what it seems. So once upon a time, Penn Entertainment, as you just said, bought 36%, then they bought the rest. So now they own 100% of Barstool Sports. Step 1. Step 2, they said, let's get into OSB, right, which is online sports betting. DraftKings has about a 35% market share. FanDuel has about a 30% market share. MGM and Caesars each share about a 25% market share. ESPN's wanted to be there because over the last 5 years, what have we seen? The sports leagues have warmed up. Remember when they thought that DraftKings and FanDuel were radioactive? We can't have betting logos on the outside of the outfield walls and in football stadiums. Remember they were all nervous about this? We can't have gambling that close to it. Well, you're ordaining fantasy sports. We're making happy bets between guys. Now you're just doing the full thing. So the leagues warmed to this, which meant that OSB was growing like a freight train. Last year, it was $1.6 billion. 5 years ago, it was barely $400 million. So online sports betting running. What does that have to do with Barstool? Penn bought Barstool to create the Barstool Sportsbook, which they successfully created. But when they went door to door to regulators in every state, now Pat and I know what this is about, because in insurance, you have to go door to door in every state for a thing called the DOI, Department of Insurance. Well, there's similar departments regulating gambling in the states where it's legal, where it's not just legal at Indian casinos, it's legal throughout the state. They start going door to door and they're like, you have a compliance problem. What's a compliance problem? These Barstool guys have like 9 podcasts. They talk about fantasy. They talk about, was the game fixed? Was the ref high? You can't be saying that with your left hand if you're running a sports book with your right hand. Do you follow? So they kept telling Penn, they got into, I think it was Pennsylvania they got into. They tried to get into Michigan. Michigan gave them a hard time. So what Portnoy is saying, content limitations posed by regulated. So Penn is pulling its hair out because it can't get into OSB and get the licenses in the other states. So what does it do? It's looking for somebody that wants to get into OSB, maybe somebody who's restructuring, laying off talent, looking for new revenue. Bingo. ESPN. And so they go to ESPN and they said, hey, I got an idea. I give you $100 million of this a year, and that was the $1.5 billion they did. So for 10 years, there's $1 billion, and $500 million in warrants, in other words, to buy more. So I'll give you ESPN $1.5 billion. We'll rename this ESPN Bet, which you would never have thought would have happened 5 years ago. But now ESPN's in OSB. And the regulator said, okay, well, listen, I'll look at your application if you have a more controlled ESPN brand. But what are you doing about these Barstool guys? Penn said, I'll be right back. And they went to Dave Portnoy and said, Dave, buy your entire company back for $1. On all the corporate docs, you have 100% control, and you have and it's all you. We do not own. We're not on the board. We're not there. However, I need you to accept and sign this option agreement that says if you ever sell the company, you'll give me 50% of the proceeds. In exchange, you can't say anything about me, and there has to be a non-compete that you'll never work with any other OSBs. You understand?
So they can never do gambling.
Yeah. So Barstool Sports can talk fantasy all day long, but they can't disparage Penn or ESPN, and they have things they need to do. So if Portnoy ever sells, he gives them 50% of the money. But far as the regulators are concerned, that $1 decouples Penn from Barstool, so they and new BFF, ESPN, can go to all the regulators because they want a slice of it. So did Portnoy get control of his company and the full board and everything back? He sure did. But technically, you and I both know how equity works. Technically, Penn still is in for 50%. And if he ever sells, they get 50% of the money. But they don't
Let me
talk.
Let me get this straight. So he can't do anything with gambling moving forward.
No, he could talk fantasy sports, but he can't do OSB.
At all.
At all. The Barstool sports book that we've seen in casinos goes away. New signs will be up.
So can you Google what percentage of the revenue was from the Barstool OSB? What percentage of the revenue did Barstool make from their OSB?
It was relatively new, and they were only a limited number of states. I don't have the dollars. Let's see if Rob can find it.
And Tom, it's going to be called ESPN Bet now?
Correct.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yep.
Wow, I can't believe that they're going to do that.
So Portnoy does have full control, full creative control. He's got the board. He can do whatever he wants. He can't get into OSB. That's all it is. And he said, I'm not worried about ever having to give up half of the company. I'm never selling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
I mean, go for it.
Yeah, I just think for a larger context, I think the story.
Oh, there you go. So Barstool, I'm sorry. So FanDuel accounts for 47% of the national OSB. Parent company Flutter said Wednesday with DraftKings and second amongst 35%. Barstool Sportsbook market share is roughly 5%. That 5% is still a lot of money, though.
That's
so
correct.
for them to have 5%, that's gone?
No, yeah. Barstool loses that. That is now Penn and ESPN Bet have 5% of the market.
So it's almost like somebody buying our insurance company and giving it back to us and saying, hey, Pat, I'm giving this insurance company back to you, but you can never, ever sell annuities again. Never. Annuities is not yours. That's the one. I don't care what you do with securities, stocks, insurance. You can't touch annuities.
And I'm not on your board, but if you ever sell, Pat, this coupon right here says you got to give me half the money if you ever sell.
I got it. Okay.
So that's how Penn's protecting itself to get its money back someday. But Portnoy said, I'm never going to sell this until I die.
How about they have a $50 million EBITDA in a year? You know, he wants to pay himself $20 million. Penn can't say nothing.
Nope. If he monetizes it, takes investors, or if he sells, they get something.
So the 50% is only on sale. It's not on EBITDA every year profits.
Correct. It's monetization.
Good for Dave. So Dave got also, good. So both parties win.
That's right.
I actually think this is good, and they're hedging themselves. They're going after the bigger victory for themselves. They're betting on someone that's going to make him more money than Barstool, okay? So they're bidding on a corporation instead of a founder. This is when the founder, Portnoy's got to go prove to the market, you thought I was going to make money just with your betting stuff? Watch what I do here. This is why you got to love capital. And then it's going to be a good show next 5-10 years.
And by the way, if you're DraftKings or you're FanDuel, are you sweating this morning? Because now ESPN has been given a
green light,
$100 million a year and a very capable partner in Penn to go after that market.
And I love how he goes in the office and now he's like, everybody get your ass to the office.
I'll just add that I actually really appreciate the trajectory of Barstool. So it was founded in 2003, right? Everyone thinks that, it hit the internet in 2012, 2013, Instagram, founded in 2003 in a little town in Massachusetts outside of Boston. Jewish kid, Portnoy, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, there you go. You know, those Jews and that money. So I think it's just really impressive. So 20 years later, so what happened? 2003, he starts this. It's a little newspaper. They're talking fantasy football. They're talking gambling.
Yep.
It's just a little thing, whatever. Boom, the internet happens. Basically, 2007, I think they take it to AOL. They're on the internet. Boom, 2012, 2013, they're hitting Instagram. Boom, Saturdays are for the boys. Everybody knows that, Tom. And they just start blowing up, and their content is just cutting edge. It's awesome. It's funny. It's hilarious. It's more than just sports. It's pop culture, hot chicks. All right, all good. And, to see 20 years later where they're at is really impressive. And they're obviously making a bet on him for another couple decades. So I think to circle back to this, you know how they say one bite, everybody knows the rules?
Yeah.
For sure. $1. And Penn Gaming knows the rules now, homie.
What's also very interesting is there's an evolution point there for Dave Portnoy that I thought was brilliant. From about 2017, 2021, they had their own channel, Channel 85, on Sirius, and they were programming it 24/7. So they had hour programs, all kinds of things. And when that deal clunked in 21, that's where the rest of their podcast came from. They converted all of those radio shows to podcasts. So that's what made Barstool Sports suddenly one of the largest podcast publishers. And that's where the Pardon My Take came, and that also is where they kind of hit some bumps.
He found Caller Daddy, right? That's their podcast.
That's right, and
Yeah,
he had and like many media companies, some of his talent became free agents.
Right.
Caller Daddy became a free agent. She went somewhere else, and also actually there were two of them. One of them jumped off the show, and then the other one went by herself. And then the other one was he was doing a live show at the Super Bowl in 2017, and he had Pat McAfee simultaneously announce he was retiring as a punter and starting the Pat McAfee show, and he was on Barstool for 2 years, and then he went off and he just got, I think it's $30 million a year from a
ESPN,
sponsored by FanDuel, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So Portnoy it's a beautiful evolution. If you only see the guy that's rating pizzas and being rough around the edges, you know what? That is a facade, and inside there's a very, very shrewd guy, and his CEO, Erica Nardini, is not to be trifled with. Really impressive people.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.